Hey, we're just going to have a quick, or not quick, call about Scrum roles and how we all play a part in those Scrum roles. So I'll just start off by laying out some vision, cast some vision about what we are hoping to accomplish with the different roles that we have or that we're creating as part of Acklen Avenue. First off, we started off this company with a strong desire to remain flat organizationally. As we were growing, we never really wanted to start like trying to create hierarchy trees and get managers that are over this group of people and that group of people and form different teams and everything. We wanted to really just kind of have one flat team that is able to manage itself, self-organize as much as possible, and just have one layer of management that really just tries to let everybody else manage themselves. So when we started going down the road of Scrum, we started to realize that this philosophy actually works really well with Scrum, where we don't really have project managers. We have Scrum team members, which are either a product owner or a Scrum master, developers, and then we started realizing that there are other players in this that are really essential, like QA, business analysts, designers, things like that. So since we've kind of grown that organically, it is probably necessary to just at least have a conversation where we're all here and all be able to have get on the same page about what our roles are and what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing. I'll stop there and just see if there are any comments or questions before I try to start kind of picking apart the roles.
No, I think that's good.
Okay.
I'm good. I think we should.
Yeah, I think we're good to dive in.
Okay, cool. So I'm not going to go in some sort of order of importance or anything like that. I'm just going to kind of go in my thought pattern. Product owner is something that I've learned about in the past few years as we realized that we needed something like that. I used to do it all the product ownership. I would interface with the client, and I would try to understand their requirements. I would write what used to be kind of not user stories and what turned into better user stories over time, and I would manage the cards. I was doing the Scrum mastering. And what it turned out was that I really suck at all that as far as executing it, implementing those things. I'm probably better at thinking about them and theorizing. So that's where we then started with Camilo as a Scrum master, and he actually went off to Miami and got certified as a Scrum master and has really shaped our understanding of what a Scrum Master is and should be doing. And also we've been reading a lot, several of us, to try to understand that role. So let's talk about Scrum Master just for a second. Scrum Master, as far as my understanding goes, should be protecting the developer, the Scrum team, the developers, QA, everybody on the Scrum team, from the client or the product owner. The traditional Scrum is that the Scrum Master is fighting for the dev team. Also, the Scrum Master is well. Let me develop that theme just a little bit more. Fighting for the dev team means that there's not some project manager that comes into the room where the devs are and say, okay, we got to have this now, right now, and applying pressure and trying to get the devs to do shortcuts and things like that. So the Scrum Master would traditionally be able to say, hang on a second, the devs are busy working on this thing. And then the same thing kind of applies in a Scrum meeting, a stand-up, a daily Scrum, where really the purpose is to be really, really quick and not to be a status meeting for management, but more for a way of radiating information between all the devs and all the QAs and everybody that's involved with with the Scrum team. So, a Scrum Master's role during a daily Scrum is to make sure that we're sticking to this format. What'd you do yesterday? What are you going to do today? Are you blocked? Those three things, and anything extra, the Scrum Master would say, let's wait for that. Let's put a pin in that. Have a conversation about that after, so that daily Scrum can be literally down to like 5 minutes. And I'll add, this is probably not something that was listed in any kind of Scrum documentation, but I would add that our Scrum Master should probably make sure that these daily Scrums start on time, so that we can build a culture of being on time to things. Even if everybody's not there, then go ahead and have that daily Scrum. It ends when it ends, and if people can't get there on time, then they're probably going to miss it because it's going to be short, 5-6 minutes. And then sidebars would happen after the daily Scrum in a separate call or in chat or privately or whatever. Same thing happens. And so the Scrum Master is kind of protecting that daily Scrum. Another thing is that the Scrum Master should be protecting the Scrum process. That's kind of like making sure that we have the different meetings at the right times of the week or of the sprint. We add as a company, we add the concept of an internal demo, which happens 2 or 1 day before the end of the sprint. So our Scrum Masters, Acklen Avenue Scrum Masters, would make sure that internal demo is scheduled ahead of time, and the retrospective is scheduled ahead of time, so that there's at least 24 or 48 hours between those two meetings, the internal demo and the retrospective. Speaking of the retrospective, the Scrum Master would normally be the protector of the theme of the Scrum of the
Sprint.
The retrospective. I had a 7-year-old distracting me. Sorry. So protecting that, making sure that it doesn't dissolve into something that it shouldn't be. It's really just a way to talk about what went well, what didn't go well, what can we improve on, what can we keep, things like those things. And then also being ready for the next sprint, getting a sprint planning meeting ready. So those are things that a Scrum Master should be doing. I would even add that maybe a Scrum Master could be the person who is kind of trying to coach the developers to be better communicators during meetings, to speak up more, and not have a lot of that awkward silence. In fact, I'm sure that that's part of the Scrum Master role, because the things that I've read include coaching, agile coaching. So a Scrum Master would help people to understand the different aspects of Scrum, so that the whole team is moving in the right direction, which includes active, not passive participation in meetings. So that's my understanding of the Scrum Master, as far as like the Scrum role, and then our little flavor in Acklen Avenue. I think that a lot of, well, especially the coaching side of things, it should be pretty light as far as like the workload for a Scrum Master, because we have fairly mature Scrum teams. Most of our team members know pretty well what the different components of Scrum are, and so they don't require as much coaching. But the rest of it is definitely essential and super valuable to our process. It makes us successful. So I want to stop there and just get any kind of questions or extra comments if I left out any information about Scrum Masters.
Yeah, this is Jean. Quick comment. My approach on a Scrum Master has always been developers are most productive when they can focus on development. So the Scrum Master, to me, is who is going to open all the roadblocks to make sure they are only focused on their product. So he's going to take care of everything else, like you said, around them. One of the terms I had in the class I took was a servant leader. Basically, he's going to lead the team, make sure they're focused, and basically, at a most basic level, bring them water if you had to, just to make sure they can focus, so that they're not off chasing rabbits. So from a product owner, if I think the development team's lost focus a little bit, my connection would be to the Scrum Master saying, hey guys, there's something that's not being productive here. As the Scrum Master, can you take a look at that, see how you can bring everybody back to focus on development? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and you brought up something, an essential piece of being a Scrum Master that I completely forgot, which is lifting blocks. That's very, very important. It doesn't necessarily mean that a Scrum Master is responsible for lifting code blocks. That can be a possibility, but I think the Scrum definition is not talking about like somebody's stuck with a C# issue or a JavaScript issue or something like that. It's more like I don't understand what they want with this feature. So then the Scrum Master, being very connected and active with those developers, would know who to go to about that. The thing that's special about Acklen Avenue's team is that we're so communicative in Slack and spinning up a hangout as needed. Those kind of blocks are almost never real. Like they almost never really happen. However, there was one just recently with one of our mobile projects where Renee, as the Scrum Master, has had to help lift a block. Where we were doing one thing in Android, it was working in Android, it wasn't working in iOS, and it wasn't that Renee all of a sudden had to be an expert in iOS and Android. It's more like Renee, as a Scrum Master, took it upon himself to help do some research and guide the developers on the team in trying to find a solution. And they were able to find a solution. So not that Renee had to get in and start coding and all that stuff, it's just that Renee was helping lift a block there. So great example of a technical block, but that's not exactly coding. All right, anything else about Scrum Masters?
I have a question. I know that the Scrum Master have a different role of a common Scrum Master in Acklen Avenue, right? But I mean, I would like to understand what is the role of the Scrum Master with the Trello board that we are handling, because as until I understand, I mean, I think the product owners and the business analysts are in charge of create cards, and then they have like grooming meetings with devs and QAs in order to groom the cards. Until this process, the Scrum Master is not involved, as until I understand, right?
So,
About the grooming meetings and create cards. So the Scrum Master don't know too much about those cards.
So you brought up another thing that I've completely forgot about is though the product owner is going to own the backlog, is in charge of the backlog, the Scrum Master is in charge of everything else on that Trello board. So the Scrum Master would normally create the Trello board, would normally understand and create the different lists that help to drive the different processes, the different stages of our process. And that's probably already well in place. You guys are already doing that. So the confusion there would be who creates cards. Well, I said that the product owner. We'll get to the product owner in a moment. Product owner is going to own the backlog. It doesn't mean that the product owner is the only person who can create the cards. It really just means that we all understand that the product owner owns the backlog, and if that means that we need to create a card, we're not going to create a card and put it into on deck. We're going to put it into the backlog and maybe alert the product owner, hey, here's a card. I created one of those today on one project in Horizon, and I just put it in the backlog. It's something that I saw that I thought might be interesting, and I just put it in the backlog. I don't even know that I alerted the product owner because it wasn't really necessary that they know about it. It's just they'll stumble across it one day and it'll be, they can think about it. But sometimes there are bugs that we need to create. QA might create a bug. You as a Scrum Master, you might find your own bug. Devs might find a bug. Anybody can create cards. It's just that they go into the backlog. The product owner gets to prioritize them. Maybe it's a bug. that's fatal or mission critical, that we fix it. Maybe it's kind of low priority, kind of edge case, so the product owner gets to prioritize that and decide whether it gets worked or in what order it gets worked.
To add something to that, the Scrum Master should cooperate with the product owner to know how to split the features into cards. So that's
Also,
something
yes.
important because the product owner is, well, it's the owner of the backlog. But sometimes they have this feature, and the Scrum Master should help them to split it into cards so developers can work easier and more modular. So to put an example, well, today QA was asking for something that was not on the card, and well, I just created the card, but the product owner is the owner of the backlog, so he will decide if we do it or not, or when we do it. But I'm just helping, keeping the process and making sure that we have everything set for the developers.
Correct. And I'll add to that the Scrum Master should take it upon himself or herself to help the product owner split cards when it's logical. But that doesn't limit it to just Scrum Masters. I would say that any dev is welcome to make suggestions about how a card should be split. And that especially is something that should happen during grooming meetings. We get to we're grooming a card, and Scrum Masters are not always part of a grooming meeting. So the devs are for sure, or a dev at least, and so that that card is getting groomed, and the dev starts realizing, oh my goodness, this is way too big. They see all the dev tasks, and this is just way too big for one card. So then the dev can help, or the Scrum Master call the Scrum Master in, just get more heads on it and say, okay, how can we logically split this and still have a great demo? Stuff like that.
What about velocity? Is it the Scrum Master's responsibility to ensure velocity is optimized?
I'm so glad you all are in this meeting. So the Scrum Master should be aware of velocity. And is not necessarily going to be a task master to try to increase velocity always, but should be aware of the velocity and should have a way of tracking that velocity. So we've kind of developed over the years a way of structuring the Trello boards to be able to track velocity. We put our points on the Trello cards, so we're able to see in a list how many points are in that list. And then when a sprint is over, we take all of those confirmed done cards and move them into a list that is it's labeled by that sprint's name. Sometimes I see it's called deployed sprint 1, deployed sprint 2, whatever it's called. As long as those are separate lists per sprint, then we can actually go back to our Trello board and see, okay, this sprint we did 30 points, this sprint we did 40, this sprint we did 50, and we can see that there's a trend maybe of we're going faster and faster, or going slower and slower, or we're maintaining this kind of level, and that will help us during a sprint planning meeting to decide how many points we want to commit to for the next sprint. We see that pretty much every sprint we're putting out 25 points. Well, get to a sprint planning meeting and deciding how many points to shoot for is probably a pretty easy question to answer. What else before we move on? Okay, excellent. Thanks for helping me fill in the gaps. Really glad you all are part of this meeting. Okay, the next thing I guess we should talk about is the product owner, because that is an official Scrum role. Now we have our own flavor on the idea of a product owner. We've discovered just through experience with our clients that we pretty much never find clients that are either mature with Agile or are responsive enough to be a real product owner to the definition of what Scrum calls a product owner. And Scrum does recognize, and I think we would agree with this, that the best possible product owner is actually the client, or is someone who is very, very knowledgeable in the product, in the domain, the problem domain, in the client's organization. So ideally, the product owner would not be working for Acklen Avenue. It would be working for Corizon or for Curo or for whatever the client is. Ideally, but we've never found even in places that say they are agile, mature in agile, and they understand it, they get it. We've never found a place that is actually capable of fulfilling it to the level that we need for our developers to make sure that we are on track.
Yeah, and
Go ahead.
if I can, one of the things I want to say is a lot of our clients, that's part of what they're paying us for. They're not just paying us for development. They're also paying us for the fact that we're taking ownership of their project, and we are figuring out exactly what needs to be done and helping them, coming alongside them and defining those things. Whether it's because they're a startup and they don't have anyone else because they're busy trying to just keep the money flow happening,
Yep.
or they've got too many people and everyone's got their own job, and it's a big company, and they might have someone, but they really need someone else to take ownership of this project for them. And so as part of a project management, I think that's a key value add that we're providing to our clients as Acklen Avenue. Almost more so than, I want to say that's almost one of the key elements of the services that we're providing here. Is not just development, not just managing the project, which is what the Scrum Master does, is managing that day-to-day operations, but also providing high-level guidance and workflow.
Yeah, I agree. Which is one thing that we were missing when I was doing it all by myself. There were a lot of things that I just wasn't doing. Because I either didn't have time or I didn't have the knowledge. And so one day we had a great idea to hire Nathaniel, and Nathaniel got in there and started providing this amazing service of business analysis and QA and communicating with the client, managing the engagement. It was amazing. So that's why we decided to multiply that and bring on Deanna and John. So just a few more things about the product owner role. Like I was saying before, we can't find clients that have this ideal product owner in-house. So we created this concept, or in our own minds we invented this process. Maybe it works for other organizations as well. But we created this idea of a proxy product owner, someone who stands inside of our organization, stands in the place of the missing product owner, and our product owner basically does what we would normally need a product owner to do: understand the product head to toe. Be someone who can make decisions about the product, and where decisions where our product owner doesn't know enough about something to be that decision maker, then he or she goes to wherever they need to find the fountain of information, and they become that expert so they can make those decisions. So that our development team has someone they can always go to that is authoritative on the business domain and be able to make decisions and move forward fast. So that's our product owners. Our product owners are not managers. Neither are our Scrum Masters. They're not managers. Not managers over people. Managers over their area, yes. Understanding, manager of your own information of the product, yes. So our product owners right now are all in the States, because that is most of our clients are in Nashville, and they just like that face-to-face interaction. They love that, and that's something that we are providing that no other companies are providing that are like us, who have an offshore team, development team, but then an onshore product owner team. That's totally unique to us, as far as I know. So more about the role of product owner. So the product owner is fighting for the client. The product owner's motivation is to make the client happy, and is going to be knowledgeable about the client's imaginary deadlines and their desires, the things that make them happy. Which are those imaginary deadlines. Sometimes they make them happy, and then so just kind of juxtapose that. So you got the product owner on one side fighting for their Tron, fighting for the user, and then we've got the Scrum Master on the other side fighting for the devs, or for the dev team, and so there is a balance there. There is a very healthy balance. So just to give you an example, Deanna knows about this imaginary deadline, and to Deanna, because she's fighting for the user, it's not imaginary. It's very important that it gets out there. There's a trade show. And these 5 features have not been worked yet because these other 5 features took too long. Deanna would be very tempted to go to the dev team and say, "We got to do this. We got to have it. What's the holdup? We got to work all night. We got to work on the weekends." And I know Deanna would never say that, but as if she's got that client in her head, then she could very well go down that road, and that'd be okay, because we have Juan Jose. Juan Jose hears those keywords: tonight, weekend, Saturday, and starts getting into this. He puts his cape on and starts being the hero for his dev team that he's leading, and he says privately in a private message, "Deanna, hold up, we don't do Saturdays," or we're not going to be able to do that, but here's what we can do. Stuff like that. So there's a healthy balance between those, and let's see, what else can I say about product owner? Very, very heavily communicative with our client. We've got status meetings, demos with the client. Something I can say about the demos, we have an internal demo, which is kind of the Scrum Master's domain. But then after that internal demo and after that time period to fix things, then we release to some sort of quasi-production environment like staging. And then Deanna is then able to go schedule a demo meeting with the client Tuesday, Wednesday, 3 weeks later, completely out of band. The Scrum team is able to continue working on more features, advancing more and more sprints, and they're not stopped or blocked by the client demo. That's something else that's kind of unique to our Acklen Avenue flavor of Scrum, is that client demo doesn't stop the Scrum process. Okay, what else can we say about product owner? I'll say one more thing. Where in olden days there was a project manager, we have a two-headed project manager. We've got a Scrum Master and a product owner. That's Scrum's answer to the project manager. It splits the person into two people. And to me, it provides a really beautiful harmony for project management. Okay, now I'm going to stop and get comments and questions.
Go ahead, Carlo.
Yeah, so it's about regarding the discovery process. So what's the product owner's role in this, and is this something that it would eventually include other persons from the team? Because I know that, for example, the product owner has to do the mock-ups even though they are not designers. So I guess my question is whether there should be other roles interconnected to the discovery process.
Right. Thank you for talking about discovery. Let me put a pin in that and save that discussion for when we talk about the engagement manager.
Oh, okay.
I have a question, and that's something that I'm confused. It's about estimation. I'm not sure if it's a task related with the product owner, but I would like to understand if it's part of the product owner, the estimation. I mean, how we can decide this project could take 6 weeks and we should finish in 6 weeks. Is because the product owner talked with the client and the client say their desired date, or I know that maybe you are involved with Byron and try to do some estimation to the product owner, but I'm a little bit confused in that part. Uh, and
Okay.
how the product
Can
owner
I answer?
are related with estimation.
Go for it,
Yeah.
Deanna.
So the product owner manages the process of getting an estimate. We don't do the estimate. I mean, we might provide color so that whoever we're getting the estimate from understands what the need is. But we always go to Byron or Dev or Devs in order to put together that estimate. And as you know, we're not setting up for any fixed bid projects on a regular basis. So our estimates shouldn't be locking us into anything. Even if we do tell the client 6 weeks or whatever, they should be communicated pretty clearly that this is an estimate. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
But maybe
I was hearing
because we
that
are
there
not
was.
related with the kind of project we have. I mean, I just learned for the last project that we were doing fixed big projects, right? But that's new for me. So that's because I don't know when it's a fixed bid project and where not, or which are other type of kind of projects we are doing.
Yeah, well, that was kind of a one-off, as far as I know. I don't think it's what we normally do. I mean, I haven't been on other fixed bids since I've been here, but I mean, we did communicate it to the team immediately that it was a fixed bid, and we explained what that meant to the team at the very beginning. And I think we even said at the time that this is a one-off and it's not something we're going to be doing all the time.
Yeah. So I'd second Deanna. I'd second what you said. What happens is we're generally the ones that meet with the client as an engagement manager because we're the ones that are going to be working with the client directly. However, what they're going to do is they say, "Oh, I've got this idea for, this great new product, and it's going to be able to do this, 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 and this." And we say, "Okay, well, each of those is going to take about a week." The way I described it to the last client I was working with is, before we have a contract, we'll give you the number of weeks it'll take. When we start estimating during the discovery process, we'll figure it out in about days. And then when it comes down to actually doing the programming and we're doing the backlog grooming, that's when we get into hours. That's about a 2 points, that's a 3 points. That gives me an idea, okay, that's going to be about half a day. But it's not hours like this is 0.65 hours. It's that's about a half a day. But what we do is we take it from weeks, which is the original estimate. Sometimes customers think, oh, this will take you 2 hours to do this, and it's actually going to take 2 weeks. Well, their budget was for 2 hours of one developer, 2 hours, $100, I'll get it done. And we say, oh, that's going to be about $12,000. They're like, bye. So rather than us sit down and write user stories and acceptance criteria for a project that's going to take us, 2 weeks, when the customer's expecting it to be 2 hours, we just say, about 2 weeks. And they're like, oh, okay. I'm going to have to go find some other options or figure out what I want to do. And that's the level of estimating that we do for the majority of our projects. Any other estimating is outside the scope of what we do.
So it's not like you promise that in in certain weeks we will finish the project or something like that, because I think it's
the problem.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say the problem is customers sometimes hear that, and all the documentation. Every time I send an email, Every time I send a piece of paper, every time I'm talking with them, our estimate, our belief, we think. I have never, to the best of my knowledge, used it will be.
Yeah, same here.
Never, ever, ever. The problem is people say, "Oh, you think it's going to be 2 weeks? I'll get it. You'll be able to get it done in one." Or, "Oh, okay, I'll have it on my desk in 2 weeks."
Or we say a high and a low estimate, and all they hear is the low.
Yes.
And my experience is that if the developers tell me it will take a week, I will communicate 2 weeks to the client, just in case there's a roadblock somewhere.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we try and make sure to let the customers know that this is an estimate, that there's things that we don't know, things that might come up during the project. We try and focus on the things that are the most important, the ones that are the highest risk first, and that's something that we work with the team on when we're doing the project planning. And so that's what so I hope that answers your question better.
Yeah, and I put in this sample because, for example, in Horizon, I started as a Scrum Master and as a DevOps in Horizon Curse, and then well, Byron said that the project should take 6 weeks. So, but we didn't know what's the project about, and the project is still in the discovery process. So the developer feel afraid about, hey, how are we gonna do this in 6 weeks? And I got a lot of message about some developer that tell me, I don't think that could be done in 6 weeks, and they express a lot about that, but they
Oh,
didn't
well, we talked about that, Renee. That
feel
we were gonna pull out features in order
sure,
to make our
right?
day.
So they communicate
Yeah.
with some people where they feel comfortable to say those kind of things. But but
Yeah.
then but then Diana say that we need to grooming most of the car of the horizon to know and to let to know to the client how many weeks it will take us, right? So I know that it's impossible to groom all the cards in 1 week, right? All the
Yeah,
cards
not
for
gonna
a
happen.
project. So my question is, that because the developer think that they just have 6 weeks to finish the project. So maybe they sacrifice some our process, like they stop doing specs or they stop doing some stuff in order to finish the product because they feel that they are not will finish on time.
What can we do to help with that?
We need to just be really careful with how we communicate. Um, if I said this will take 6 weeks, I know what I meant was it was estimated or it seemed like it might be 6 weeks, and I probably just didn't add the nice extra seems like part of it. And
So we
so
talked
we
about in the
probably
very beginning that we didn't know, and we did talk about getting it sized up for the client. So I never put an expectation that we were going to have the entire app done in 6 weeks. I said, that we were going to get the features sized and back over to the client. And when you and I talked, Byron, we decided that trying to groom the cards wasn't a good idea, and then we went on to just pull that back to a different kind of estimate, a discovery estimate to
yeah,
pass over.
which is actually a really good segue into another part that I wanted to talk about. So we'll store up your product owner comments or questions, and let's talk about engagement manager. I'm separating those two roles on purpose because someday we might have to have two different people that does develop the engagement manager and product owner. We might discover that there's a clean separation between those or something that makes sense so that we can create two separate roles, just like we did with Scrum Master and DevOps. We used to have those as one person. Now we've got them as two separate roles that are more distinguished. So there are certain things that we have that Jean and Deanna and Nathaniel do as engagement managers, while they're wearing this hat of engagement manager, that are not necessarily what a product owner would normally do in the Scrum definition. So some of the things that an engagement manager does in our organization is performing discoveries. And discovery is a product that we provide to our clients that's kind of like a pre-development plan, an architecture blueprint, kind of wireframes. It includes everything that they would need to be able to take this package and take it to any development shop and create this plan, this product. So our engagement managers are heavily involved in that. That's a pre-sales thing. A lot of times our engagement managers are involved in creating these discoveries and are spending a lot of time on a discovery and maybe don't even have enough time to be working on grooming and projects and things like that. So that's kind of one reason why I'm thinking into the future about how we might be able to split this role into two people. So as you all are maturing in your understanding of your own roles, be thinking about that too. How can we split this into another person? An engagement manager or an EM is involved in discoveries, also involved in facilitating estimates, and doing all of the pre-sales stuff, trying to get that contract signed. So sending of a statement of work, sending of different contracts. So our engagement managers are intimately aware of those things. I just wanted to kind of mention them so that we're all kind of aware of what they're doing. And just to mention to reiterate the estimates, we have 3 types of estimates that we do. One is a high-level estimate. That's kind of like an extremely rough, feels like kind of estimate, ballpark estimate. So that kind of estimate can be gotten or can be done after a whiteboard session or after you've just had a drink with the client at a restaurant, and you can scribble something on a napkin. You get a very high-level understanding of what the project is, and this feels like 6 weeks. This feels like 6 months. And it's just so that the client can decide whether or not they want to go another step with Acklen Avenue. By saying that it's going to take 6 months, in my limited experience, it feels like 6 months. If they were expecting 2 weeks, then they know to say goodbye at that moment. But if it's about what they thought it might be in their also limited experience, or if it's way more than their budget, or if it's right around what their budget was, then they're likely to say, yeah, what's the next thing we can do here? So the next thing we can do here is the discovery. So the engagement manager sends an SOW, statement of work, to the client, and they start a discovery. Sometimes the client is just like they're already sold on Acklen Avenue. They love us. They love what we do. They love who we are, and they just want to go ahead and start the project. Well, we say, hold up, hang on a second. We're still going to do a discovery, whether you want it separately or not. And so we start that discovery. Sorry, we didn't do this on Horizon, so there are some exceptions. But for the most part, or as a rule, we want to do these discoveries before we actually start any development. So the high-level estimate is ballpark. It feels like some round number, and like I like how Nathaniel put it. It's a weeks kind of thing. This is going to take 6 weeks. We're not saying 6 weeks and 5 days. We're just saying 6 weeks. Pre-project estimate is what happens during the discovery. This is a discovery estimate, and this is a user story only level. So the high level is like an epic. An epic is like a group of user stories, right? So this epic will take 3 weeks, this epic 6 weeks, so that's a 9-week feels like estimate. The next level down is the discovery, and it's more like days, like what Nathaniel was saying, but it's a user story level estimate. So we go from epic, and then we go down, zoom in a little bit closer, and we're down to user story level estimate. That right there is where the developers start to estimate things. if the engagement manager doesn't feel comfortable giving a feels like estimate, then the engagement manager can come to me or even bring other developers in and get some input on that high-level estimate. But it's also something that one of our engagement managers can just spout out if they want to. It's really just drawing from a little bit of experience and trying to give an idea of, okay, this feels like the same project we did six weeks ago, so it's going to be 6 weeks long. But the discovery estimate is where the developers are absolutely involved. So the engagement manager is generating these user stories, maybe bringing in somebody like Carlos to help generate those user stories during the discovery. They're creating wireframes, and so at that point, we haven't even signed we've only got a discovery contract with the client. Then the devs are brought in and just said, here's a user story. We don't know very much about it. What does it feel like? It's still a feels like estimate, but we're talking about days instead of weeks, and we're on the level of the user story. Then the client loves the estimate that we gave them. They love the discovery packet that we gave them with all the wireframes and our ideas and our suggestions, and they're ready to sign for product development. So they sign the SOW, the statement of work for the product development, and that's when we start to estimate on the groomed card estimate level. That this is a sprint estimate. So our sprint team is actually estimating these during a sprint planning meeting just to decide how many cards they can get done in the course of that sprint. It is in terms of points, which we kind of eventually equal to hours, but it's a much more informed estimate. It might not be any more zoomed in than the user story level estimate that happened in the discovery, but it's definitely more informed. This is the estimate where the developers as a team can get together and start really asking a lot of questions. Okay, well, did you think about, do we have to add an email server for this? And then, okay, then the estimate goes up. So three levels of estimates: the high level, the discovery estimate, and the sprint estimate. That's, to me, what an engagement manager is part of. At least the first two estimates, the high level and the discovery estimate. After that, it's more like the product owner hat starts taking over, and that's when the sprint estimates start coming out. But the sprint estimate is not driven by the engagement manager or the product owner. That's, at that point, it's driven by the Scrum Master and the Scrum team. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. Any questions or comments about product owner and engagement manager?
2 comments about the product owner. You talked about the project management. The separation between the Scrum Master and the product owner is, as a product owner, I have the long-term view. I'm looking a couple of sprints down. So the example you gave that on Friday I show up and all of a sudden there's some features that aren't there for Monday. As a product owner, if I'm finding that out on Friday, that they won't be there on Monday, there was a communication breakdown between me and the development team, me and the Scrum Master, because I should know way ahead what won't be there by the deliverable. And then you said that as the product owner, I protect the client, but when I'm facing the client, I am protecting my development team. I am still an Acklen Avenue person.
Yes.
So, Scrum Master, when I come in, you may say, hey, you're being too mean on us, you're too much the voice of the client. But when I turn around and face the client, I am protecting you as my own child.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And everything about product owner, Scrum Master, the team, it's all about communication. So I've got to be able to speak freely to my Scrum Master and know that I'm just maybe venting something, or I may be asking a stupid question, but it's only because I do not understand something. Therefore, if I'm asking a question, it's not because I think you're clueless, it's because I don't understand the answer yet. So the more I ask, the fewer surprises I'll have long term. That make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Good stuff. What else? Cool. Let's move on. We've got just a few more minutes left, and I wanted to talk about BA. So Carlos is our only BA right now. I imagine he won't be our last. We are starting to really discover the huge value of having somebody like Carlos installed in these teams. BA doesn't really have a documented role in the Scrum process, but for us, it's a very, very important role. To me, the BA is a proxy of our proxy product owner. So our product owners are spread fairly thin. We've maybe naively decided that our product owners can handle 3 projects simultaneously. I don't know if that's really true. Sometimes it might be true, sometimes maybe not. But Carlos is able to lighten the load a lot for our product owners and make them more efficient. The product owner still has the responsibility of getting these things done and getting the user stories created and groomed and things like that. But somebody like Carlos can come along and not exactly have the authority on the domain, like be able to make decisions on the domain. But maybe Carlos was in on a conversation where he heard the answer to that question 2 weeks ago, and he can answer it pretty authoritatively. This is what they said. So Carlos or our BA can really lighten the load and help make sure that our product owners are never completely overloaded. He can also do research. So if there's a theme that needs to be dug up, that's within Carlos's or our BA's ability to dig up and investigate, then he can definitely do that. I would call that more like a data spike instead of like a coding spike. And yeah, I don't know what else I can say about the product, the business analyst role, except that it rocks, and I'm so glad that we've started using that. So, any other comments or questions about BA?
The one thing I ask for my BA always is that you are my proxy with the development team, but when you put a stake in the ground and saying, I've said this, please turn around and tell me you told them, so that I don't come back next week and saying, hey, we're going to go this way, and all of a sudden the team looks at me and says, okay, why don't you and Carlos talk? Because he told us to go this way. So if you come back and tell me, because as Byron, you just said, I am ultimately responsible for the product, I do trust my BA to give directions if I'm not there, but be nice and tell me. Send me a Slack statement, send me an email. Next time we talk, just make sure you tell me so that you and I are always on the same page.
Yep. Yeah, that's good.
Agreed.
And I would say that the BA, in some ways, it's for me, it becomes very good. The way you said it, Byron, proxy, because BA role is one that helps me spread thinner, working with clients who are well established, working with clients who they just need someone to reach out to. And okay, I'm busy with these 3 new projects. The BA who's been involved with the project from the beginning, or they can help out and answer questions and be a second point of contact within the organization.
Right. I also see it as a role to maybe translate the business needs to the developers as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm finding that we're getting a lot clearer vision of the client transcribed onto our user story cards in Trello with this collaborative effort. I love it.
It's good.
What could be the relation with the Scrum Master and the business analyst?
I would say that it's the same relationship that the Scrum Master has with the PO. It's really the business analyst is just trying to lighten the load of the product owner. We've got 2 minutes left. I know some of you all have to go to another meeting, so let me just mention 2 more things, and then we can talk about other themes in another meeting if we want to, or just offline in the chat. So there are 2 more roles that are worth mentioning for sure. One is QA. Very, very, very important to producing quality products for us. QA is also kind of like the BA, lightening the load of our product owners. So the product owner has the responsibility of the quality product in front of the client. before we had QA, Nathaniel had the responsibility of doing it all. And since he already had 3 projects and trying to do QA, QA just wasn't getting done. And that's not a knock on Nathaniel. It was humanly impossible. So we added Elder and Alberto. And we started to lighten that load and also actually get QA done. And that was incredible. Our QA team has grown from there. We've matured. We understand QA a lot better now. And QA plays an integral role in our Scrum process. They are part of our grooming meetings. They are part of our different Scrum meetings, and they contribute to the project on many levels. The other one is someone who is now lightening the load of our Scrum Master, because it used to be that our Scrum Master also worked with DevOps, and it was just it was at times way too much, at times not enough. So we've split that role and delegated that to a team that we're calling Hero Unit, and so now DevOps is a team effort and is able to attack DevOps tasks on all projects, across all projects, and be able to support the devs in process and also in infrastructure. That is, we're a little bit over time, and I want to be respectful of everybody else's time and everybody else that's involved in the next meetings. So let's keep on talking in chat, and if we need to have another meeting to talk about more themes, then we will. But for right now, that concludes our call. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye.
Byron.